Hi guys, Will here from WB Trading, and if you feel like you aren't progressing within your trading for whatever reason, then today we'll make progress towards fixing that for you, and we'll do that by covering the PDS equation. If you haven't heard of this yet, this will have a huge impact on your trading. So if you want to find out what that is and how it can help, stay tuned and let's get into it. Hi guys, and welcome back. If you are new to the channel, please do hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so that you don't miss any of the free content that I share with the trading community here on YouTube. So it's no secret that the majority of traders out there struggle within their trading for a multitude of reasons, right? Too many to begin to list. But what I've found myself after working with now hundreds of traders across the years is that sometimes the answer to a problem is so much simpler than what we think. And one way I've found to firstly quickly and properly diagnose a problem, and secondly, more importantly, to actually solve it, is using what I call the PDS equation. This stands for Problem, Definition, Solution. See, the thing is, most traders don't quite know what the problem is that's actually stopping them from progressing. And more importantly, without defining the problem, you can't identify the cause, and you therefore can't land on a solution that actually solves it and helps you move past it and continue to grow. It sounds simple, doesn't it? But again, most traders are only confused because they don't actually know what to do, because they don't know what they want, because they haven't properly defined the problem or the problems that are holding them back. And if you don't know what the problem is, or you don't know what you're trying to achieve, or you don't know what's holding you back, you then don't know what to do. You don't know where to look for a solution and so on. That's the problem that the PDS equation solves. Now, I was listening into a mentor who I follow closely recently, who was expanding on the flow state. And what I mean by that is that zone of just pure focus that we all have the capacity to get into, to fall into. I'm sure you've probably experienced it in some area of your life. And it's that state where time just flies by. You know, you're just fully focused on a task, right? And you find that by zeroing in on something with no distractions. In this case, that would be whatever problem that you're trying to overcome. So what's causing it? Why is it standing in the way? What exactly is the problem? Write it down and put it into words. It all starts with properly defining the problem. So for example, is the problem exiting early out of fear and self-sabotaging, and maybe not holding wins so that they can achieve their full potential? Is the problem missing winning trades but catching losses? You know, maybe the problem is missizing positions and then losing more when you're wrong and banking less when you're right. Maybe the problem is not understanding that you have to lose to win, that you have to take losses, that, they're just a part of trading, but you're struggling with this. These specific problems can be addressed, whereas if the problem isn't correctly defined and correctly laid out, so for example, you might say, I'm struggling, but I don't really know why. There's no structure there, is there? You have to zero in. So for example, is it position sizing that's creating the problem? Is it screen time or psychology that's causing the problem? Is it strategy hopping, or again, dealing with losing runs that's the problem? Whatever you feel is holding you back, refer to the PDS equation and focus in on what is and what isn't working. What is the problem? How is the problem defined? And then via this, what would actually solve this specific problem? So let's cover an example. Let's say the problem is you keep missizing positions. We'd then define this by perhaps agreeing that it's taking place because you haven't decided on an appropriate level of risk, and you don't stay on top of this as your account balance evolves. The solution here might be to settle on a strict 1% risk per trade, keep a notepad beside you with this level of risk calculated at all times, so that when you're next presented with a trade opportunity, you don't have to worry, you don't have to guess, you don't have to panic. You can just look at your notepad and see, right, my current level of risk is 1%, I'm currently risking, let's say, £74 per trade. And then from there, you can define your stop loss, place your risk within this, and then execute. Then when you close out the trade, you update your notebook so that you know what you'll be risking when the next trade setup forms, and so on and so forth. This uses that PDS equation, the problem, definition, solution equation, to solve that problem entirely. You've removed the distraction of having to work everything else in a moment, you've increased focus, and you've increased ability because of this. And more importantly, you've now taken that next step within your trading. Two, you've progressed, you've grown, and you've completely solved that initial problem of missizing positions. And the great thing here is not only will you progress within your trading by running and rerunning this process, but by removing distractions and panic and overthinking, you'll actually increase that flow state that we talked about earlier too, that zone of focus where time just flies by and you remain fully focused on exactly what it is that you're doing. And again, by removing the former, it'll help you to trade with more clarity, and thus you'll be making better decisions because of that. That's the best thing about making things as mechanical as possible, predetermining actions, putting rules in place, because it removes that in the moment panic, that on the spot decision making. It removes the should I, shouldn't I, it removes the overthinking and the mistakes caused by all of this. And again, on the other side of this, it increases focus, and due to that, you trade better and therefore you get better results. So one thing I've noticed from mentoring is I can always tell when someone's confused and isn't really zeroing in on a problem yet, because they tend to tell a story without any clearly defined problem. And then they typically end it by saying, what do you think? And again, the mentor who actually inspired this video said the same thing as well. Whereas people who are using the PDS equation tend to say, look, I'm struggling with Y, which is the problem, because of X, which is the definition, and I'm thinking of implementing Z, which is then the potential solution. And that level of thought and process-orientated direction tends to lead to progress much, much quicker, because everything is laid out black and white. So what is my point here is this: stop confusing yourself. Sit down, define the problem, define whatever's holding you back within your trading, and then think about this. What's the objective? Use the PDS equation and find out an appropriate solution and go. Make the relevant adjustments, make the relevant changes, and solve the problem. When it comes to a problem, there's only typically two avenues to go down when you're trying to actually solve it. One is focus, which is action and moving towards it, and the other is, of course, distraction. If you remove distraction, you get focus. It's as simple as that. Sometimes it's not about what you add in, it's actually what you remove that fuels growth and fuels progress. So think about this. Let's say you sit down in your front room to read a book with the TV on, your wife sat next to you, and your phone on the table. Okay, there's no way that you're properly reading that book, right? Because the phone's going to be going off, the TV's going to be distracting you, the wife's going to be talking to you, someone knocks on the door, and so on and so forth. It's the same within trading. If you use all social media channels, you're trying to trade 10 different markets, you're reading this forum, this book, that book, you're in 10 different trading groups on Facebook, you're chatting to 10 different traders who all trade differently to you, and so on and so forth. You know, your head and your trading is just going to be a mess, isn't it? It's going to be all over the place. In fact, that's the reason actually that I stepped back from Twitter recently, because I realized it doesn't really add any value for me. It doesn't make me a better trader. It doesn't help me to solve problems. It doesn't provide me with edge. So I've kind of more or less stopped using it over the last few months, unless I have something that I feel is of value to actually share, in which case I nip on there, post a tweet, close it, get out again before I'm distracted, and then it's back to focused work that actually benefits my trading, and so on. Point being, anything that doesn't help you achieve is a distraction. Anything that doesn't add value and help you to learn and to grow and to build your knowledge is a distraction. It's moving you away from focused work that actually gets you results. So just get rid of it. Delete Twitter if you have to. Delete Facebook if you have to. Delete Instagram if you have to. You know, the less distraction, the more focus. And the more focus, the better the results, the better the outcomes, and the more progress that you're going to make within your trading. Again, I said this earlier, but sometimes the answer to a problem is it's just so much simpler than what we think. So use the PDS equation, identify the problem, define the solution, settle on a solution, and get to work. Focus in and get the problem solved. Anyway, I hope that helps. I hope that's triggered some inspiration and given you some points to think about. If there is anything specific that I can help with, please feel free to comment below the video and I'll lend a hand. But other than that, I'll leave it there for today. And as always, trade with Hedge, with consistency. And I look forward to having you back here on the channel soon.